السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به وأرحم إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا ادخلوا في السلم كافة. خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Dear brothers and sisters, we begin by praising Allah, the creator of the heaven and the earth. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us for our shortcomings. We ask Allah's help that may Allah guide us to the straight path. Verily, whomsoever Allah guides, there is no one who can misguide him. And if Allah leads someone astray to the wrong way, there is no one who can show him guidance. I bear witness that there is no one is worthy to worship except Allah, and I also bear witness that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the last and final messenger sent to all of the creations. And to proceed, dear brothers and sisters, the most truthful speeches are the speeches that is recorded in the book of Allah, that is the glorious Quran. And the most truthful guidance are the guidance that is recorded in the speeches of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the most evil affairs in the religion is the newly innovated things. All newly innovated things is a form of misleading, and we all know that the misleading will lead to hellfire. So I seek Allah's protection from the cursed one, the Satan, and may Allah guide us to follow the straight path. Dear brothers and sisters, the topic of this afternoon's talk, as it was announced, that Islamic solutions to the modern problems. We live in the age of 21st century. So now there are various subjects that is discussing in the world today. The globe become very small due to the technological advancement and due to the impact of media. Our life become very short. So we are passing times 24 hours a day is just like an hour or a minute. Why is it important for us to understand the Islamic solutions to the problems? Though we say it's a modern problem, rather the problems of humanity is throughout the ages. Since the beginning of the creation of mankind, started with Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, till the present day, there is a great consensus and a need for the mankind to find guidelines and to find the solutions to the problems of the existence. Now, Islam comes through the ages of time. It started with the first man, Adam alayhi salam, and followed through by the ages when there is a need in the society for mankind for guidelines to find a straight path in order to resolve the problems and the conflicts that we have in the human society. That was the purpose of sending all the messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, we find in the world today there are various academics, there are various experts, those who are trying to identify the problems, the existence problems of the world, of the mankind, and somehow or the others to find various solutions in order to resolve the conflicts of the problems. We find that politicians especially nowadays are very busy in order to find problems. Maybe some problems are not the problems according to various understanding, but there are politicians, there are authority, those who pass the legislations and the regulations of the country for the humans and the system. So there is a great concern about to identify problems and what are the possible solutions can be given to mankind to find a way to achieve peace and harmony in the society. Now, being a mankind, being a human, having all the intellect, we understand this philosophy that yes, we need some principles, some norms and values, and some directions in order to direct our life in an organized way. Now, when it comes to Islam, why we say that Islamic solutions, I mean, there are various solutions in the world, we say, but Islamic solutions is based on the Creator's solutions. Just now you see that this technology of the systems of sounds have some problem. Who understand it, we had to take the assistance of the person who is knowledgeable on this field in order to get assistance to start the system. And now, being the creator of the human being, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of the heaven and the earth, He have much more intellect than the human being, because He has created human being for a certain purpose. And the purpose is very, in a small nutshell, described in the Quran. That we have created the mankind just to obey the commandment of God. What is the reason? That is the reason Islam was sent in the passage of time. Islam is literally means peace. It comes from the root Arabic word salam, which means peace. And it also comes through from the Arabic word silm, which means to submit. So in short, as it is described the meaning of Islam, that every human being should acquire peace by submitting the will of the individual to the will of the Creator. Now, Creator says that the purpose of this life is to achieve peace in this world and the peace in the hereafter. And the problems that the mankind have, it is due to the problems created by the human being. It's not that the Creator created a problem and then He wants the solutions. No, the human beings are there and we will have problems because of our different way of thinking, different way of ideology, different way of finding things and to making things into objective. So we have various ways and various forms of thinking. Now this is what is Islam. If we just generalize the problem in the human society, we have to think rationally. What are the valid problems? Because the purpose of Islam was seriously meant for just few objectives. 2 or 3 objectives among these are the spiritual problems of humanity and the social, the moral problems of humanity. Along with the spiritual problem, that is what we say, the nature of human being. Every human being is created with the knowledge and the capacity to know and understand his Creator or her Creator and to follow the Creator's law. There is a forms of obedience and there is a form of disobedience in the spirituality. When it comes to the social problem, because we know all the problems in the world today is somehow the others related to mankind. So the purpose of sending messengers in the various ages is for these 2 purposes, is to make the humankind to go back to spirituality. Then the human makes law, to the Creator makes law. And there is the need of address of the social problem. All the prophets, they were doing these 2 jobs. When it comes to Adam alayhi salam, Nuh alayhi salam, Musa alayhi salam, Dawud alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam, and Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, we find the history of all the prophets. They were addressing first the issue that the humans should worship only one true God, and the mankind have problems in the society. The problems are various in the social problems, but to address the problem and to find a solutions, probably the best solutions by the Creator and the messengers, so that mankind can find a direction. Now, this is the jobs of all the prophets, and that is how it left behind. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes in the Quran, in Surah Al-Zumur, chapter 39, verse 41, that we have sent the messenger on ages, and we have sent humankind, and we set the Quran with every kind of examples and parables for the human, so that they can derive admonition and a guidance. And in Surah Al-Ibrahim, chapter 14, verse 1 and 2, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this is the book, the Quran, we have revealed for mankind, so that they can find a direction moving away from the darkness into the light. And this is a book for those who understand and who think. So if we categorize the problem, spiritual problem and then the social problem. The social problem can be categorized in many ways. There are political problems, economic problems, there are problems with the educational problem, there are social problem, which is a very high problem, high proportion in the present world that we live today. And there are also various other problems. Now, why we address these various problems? First of all, let us see the problems of mankind in the social problem. I was reading a newspaper yesterday that the ministers in Sweden, and also we know what's happening in the world today, nowadays especially. There is a great consensus that people are blaming Islam as an incorrect political faith. Islam is really the problem creating in the world today, and Muslims are supposed to be the community who are making more problems to the community. And we know that there is a proposal in the governments are coming to minimize the freedom of certain religious faiths, especially the Muslims. How to eliminate and find this problem? When we come through the world today, we find various problems, especially last week, the Swedish Organization for Health and Science, who were preventing alcohol and alcoholism and their causes, they published a report about the 150 billion Swedish krona spending every year in order to resolve the cost of alcohol and alcoholic abuses and the amount of effect due to alcohol. 150 billion Swedish krona the government is spending, and about 900 million Swedish krona were spent last one decade, about 10 years, from 2000 to 2009, in order to train the youths to make an awareness so that they can find a possible better way than become a habitual drinker in the society. So if we just categorize some of these problems that are devastating, because World Health Organization also published a report last year, what about the impact of alcohol and other social issues within the link of alcoholism, because that is a social burden in the world today. And now we are going to see some of these impacts about the social problem and how Islam addressed the issue and give a direction and a guidelines for the humanity to find a better way of life. We have to understand and see the causes and the consequence of a social practices in the society. Now we know in the world that there are problems due to alcoholism. In America, they categorize the problems into different sections. There are 44 million drinkers in American society and 25 million heavy drinkers, along with 11 million problem drinkers. You know, they categorize drinkers, heavy drinkers, problem drinkers, and there are social drinkers. Though if you categorize, these all are the same, because some started in the minor level, some are in the deep positions. The European Health Commission report, it says that more than 30% of the alcohol that consumed in the European Union, it consumes by the Swedish. So in a way or the other, the Swedish consumes the most alcohol in the European region, where we find that the youth, especially the age between 15 to 26, they consume the 90% consumption of alcohol in the Europe. And this is just less than the amount, the proportion that they say is compared to US. So it's nothing. So 90% of the alcohol going to these youths who are aged between 15 to 26. And there is a great concern for us to understand now. The European Health Survey, they made also some statistics and the figures about the amount that is being taken by the female and the male. So the proportion of the girls usually in Sweden, they take more alcohol and drugs especially. There are other drugs coming with this. And there are various health problems, the problems we know due to alcohol, the drivings and the accidents. There are causes of diseases, there are causes of social burden in order to resolve the family problems. There are various family problems. The violent crimes that are taking place in this region in the world, especially the problems are more or less the same. And this is one of the reasons due to the heavy consumptions of alcohol. So the World Health Organizations have put up some regulations, what we say, that one of the causes of this problem is due to the marketing of these products. We find in the advertisement, in the media, newspapers, and in the television channels, there are advertisements going on just to catch the victims, especially the youths. And they know how to program them in order to fall into the traps and to mix up with these problems in the very early ages of their life. And Sweden, as I told you before, they spent 150 million they're spending last year. And there's a great concern in the political world today that now this impact is causing nothing because the alcohol consumption is increasing despite with the spending that they are making for social awareness to make the youth to understand, to be away from being drink and get into trouble. Now, along with the alcohol, there comes cigarettes, there comes nicotine, heroin, and then other problems. BBC, according to last November and December, they published some statistics in the world that alcohol taking much more problems than even heroin. So because of that, it costs too much within other parameters that I have described, very few. So now, National Institute of Public Health Sweden, that we know some of the reports come that the army, even today, two of the army, they were sacked from the departments because they were found heavy drink and they were unconscious when they were in the job. And the doctors especially, who cured the patients, one doctor in Kosovo, he was found in the job in his place that he was found fully addicted, and then later on it takes precautions against him. And Dagens Nyheter, I'm sorry if I pronounce, one of the prestigious newspaper, they report that 65,000 violent crimes are reported in Sweden every year due to the consumption of alcohol. So after high consumption of alcohol, 65,000 violent crimes. And if you check out the violent crimes in the Swedish authority of this health, you will find all these problems are mentioned there. It's not the problem we identify, but the authority in the field there identify. Now, what is the Islamic solutions to this devastating problem in the world? Alcohol is being a very serious problem in the region that we have. The problems are the same all over the world. I give the statistics and the figures of the region that we live so that we understand it better. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives the solutions in the Quran. In Surah Al-Ma'idah chapter 5 verse 90, Allah says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, that O people who you believe, innamal khamru wal maisru, that if you are dealing with intoxicant, or maisru and gambling, and dedication of a stone, the fortune telling, and the idol worship, Allah says, Rijdu min amri shaitan, that this is the handiworks of shaitan. فَاسْتَنِبُوا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ, that you abstain from such abomination so that you may prosper. See, the youths are devastating, especially this message is for the elders, the parents especially, in order to understand first, because they are the one who insist the youths to be drunk. Because most of the parents in this Western region, in the European region, in the American region, they are also the highly consumers of alcohol. Now you being a consumer, you cannot restrict your child from being taking it. And the youths are now getting into more and more trouble. So the youths also have to understand. People are claiming that, okay, we may take a small amount of alcohol in a week. But the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet of Islam, he makes an clear-cut obligations about this ideology that the human being have in their mind. In the Sunan Ibn Majah, there is a book called Book of Intoxicant, one separate chapter. It deals with the intoxicant, the wine or the alcoholic beverages, or the drinking that we have along with alcohol. In the hadith of Sunan Ibn Majah, in the Book of Intoxicant, 3390, the Prophet of Islam, he said that, look, alcohol is the mother of all evil, and it is a very shameful deeds that will lead you to do the shameful deeds. And in the same chapter, in the Book of Intoxicant, just a few hadith before, hadith 3380, the Prophet says anything that intoxicated, either a small amount or a greater amount, is forbidden for my ummah. So there is no questions for a drop or a glass or a half pack. This is totally forbidden in Islam. Why? Because the Creator and the Messenger, they understand that the mankind will somehow or the others will fall into these traps of the Satan. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala restricts, the Prophet restricts, we find various people will now claim today that the Muslims or immigrants coming from different backgrounds, especially carrying the values of Muslims or identity of the faith of Islam, they are not integrated in the society. We find this problem of integration, what they say. In the separate sections, the European Health Commissions, World Health Organizations, and you find any medical doctors who would prescribe, do not touch these things. Be safe for yourself and be safe for the society. But the politicians, the businessmen especially, they are promoting these very severe social problems. We say we are integrated because we are integrated with the authority, not with the problem drinkers or social drinkers. But the people, they want to manipulate, the problem of integrations. Yesterday, I think in IIF mail group also this email came, that the Minister of Defense, he was just promoting these things, that this problem should be resolved. So the integration minister is now taking initiative in order to let the Muslims to integrate, to consume. I mean, in a word, he didn't use the word, but I understand from our understanding, because we are far more behind. The Muslims are the least in numbers of alcoholic consumption in the world. But according to United Nations, Muslims also consume 30 to 40% of cigarettes. That is also a forbidden things in Islam to take. So the Quran comes into giving legislations, guidelines, in terms of taking any drugs, either a cigarette or nicotine, heroin, or any kind of drugs that causes the mind to default. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 195, that you do not use your own hand for the destruction of yourself. It implies many things together. The suicide, the slow poisoning, causing anything that causes harms to human body and mind. This is all restricted in Islam. So now we, as a Muslims, as a community as a whole, can boast in the world today that we are the least, we are the people of teetotalers in the world who do not imbibe alcohol. 1400 years before, when the verse of the Quran, the Surah Al-Ma'idah chapter 5 verse 9 to reveal, it was told in the narrations of the Prophet ﷺ that Medina was floating with the alcohol, because all the jars and the gallons of alcohol were thrown in the streets, and it is never been touched till today. It never been filled up till today. So Islam gives a very, very simple, a very precise, a very neat guidelines. Now the authority or the people who pass legislations, they have to understand these features, that why these things is mentioned in Islam, because that is what is the things is need for humanity. Now, along with the social problem of alcoholism, one of the biggest problem in the world today especially is a high rate of divorce. People forget about the concept of marriage or wedlock so far. Now, along with these problems, the problems of marriage and divorces, 50% of the American, the statistics, though it's different from 45 to 50, so I take the figures as around about 50% of the marital lives, it ends up with divorces. And in the world, there is a book by the Stanley Kurtz, The End of the Marriage in the Scandinavian, because the end of the concept of marriage is already being ended in this region of Scandinavia. People are nowadays, they don't rely about these issues of wedlock, doing something and relations between the contracts of two parties. This system is now being collapsed, and the rate of marriages are decreases in the world, along with the problem of being divorced. Now this problem is not along with the non-Muslims, these problems also rise among the Muslim society. One of the Imam in New York and also in Oslo, the Imam was telling, both were the same given statements by these two Imams, that previously, about 10 years, 15 years before, hardly in a month there were few cases of divorces, what we call talaq, that are coming in the mosque, the authority were passing. But nowadays what happens, every week, some says 4, some says 10 cases of divorces are coming and being passed by the Imam in the mosque. So Imam are getting depressed that look, where the Muslim society is going. Now, we have a great consensus in the world that Islam does not give right to women to give divorce. You know, the divorce was going one side, almost all the faiths and all the traditions. In one side, man was giving divorce. Now, because of superiority of understanding, the divorce from both sides increases. So the proportion of divorce rate is increasing. The Family Research Institute in America, the Family Research Institute in Sweden, the family and the other organizations who promoted the family life, especially in the European region and the world, they are now spending millions of currencies in order to let the people to aware of these things. And the psychologists especially, they are very much scared. You know, the Swedish authority, the Family Research Organization, they published a report that the kids especially, they are the mostly sufferer. Because when the kids, especially those who do not have parents in bondage, in the marital life, they suffer the most severe childhood life. So they are promoting the kids of the marriage parents, they do good in school. Because they can say, look, we have a mother and we have a father. Now, in Sweden, the small statistics with this small minor amount of numbers of populations, 20,000 divorces every year, and it is rapidly increasing compared to the early years. About 48,000 children experiencing the divorce parents every year. Now, 45 to 65%, as it is recorded, that the divorces are in the Scandinavian. The marital life, it ends up with divorce. And we find this, what is the causes of this social problem, what we say. What is the causes of being divorced, either from the side of the male or the female? We find in most cases, this is extramarital relationships. Now people don't find the pleasure within the wedlock. In average, Aftonbladet, they published a report December, that in average Swedish women have 15, and some statistics also says 29, male and female have 29 different sexual partners. Now if you have 29 different sexual partners in average, how can you find a family life within one? No, this is not possible. And this book about the end of marriage in the Scandinavian, it gives also significant amount of information about the past decades, what is going on in this region, the understanding of the people, especially the people who are in the age of adulthood. Last week there was coming a report in the Swedish English newspaper, also in other media highlighted that for the kids they produce an animated film. And the government and the legislations authority in the study field, they said, look, there are violations of the physical relationships animated on the movie in order to nurture the kids to fall into sexuality. So there is a high promotions by the people. They want to keep an awareness to educate the youth not to fall by showing how the human body it works, what it demands in the age of 15, in the age of 14. So now you find in the world today, even in the Scandinavian, the young kids, especially the age below 14 and 15, they are committing fornications. The number are devastating. More than 20% of the youths below the age of 15 are committing fornications. Now, people may criticize Islam, that look, Islam has a very old type of, old type of legislations. But let us see and apply these old legislations in order to resolve the problem. Can this problem be solved? Yes, in Islam it has a concept of divorce and it has a concept of khula for the sides of the women also, and also isma. But now that is not the problem. The problem is the issue, the causes. So Islam firstly it restricts and strictly prohibits any male or a female to have relations outside the wedlock. Now that resolves the maximum problem. In Poland, everyone will be shocked to know that the women are now raising voices that they can have relations outside their husband without informing the husband. The husband has no right to ask them, do you have relations or not? They have no right to ask, and the politicians, they pass the legislations, yes, we are giving women these rights as a freedom, they have a right to hide, and the husband has no right to ask. Now, is this making any solutions to the society? We find no. The numbers are increasing. People don't find respect with each other nowadays because of these immoral practices in the society. We know the hadith of the Bukhari. One of the signs of the end time is being given, that the immorality in the society will increase. Open fornications and adultery will increase. So the Prophet in the hadith of Abu Dawud, in hadith number 2172 and 73, that look, Islam has permitted divorce, but among the permitted things by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for mankind, divorce is the most hateful things. It is permitted because there is a chapter in the Quran which fully deals with the topics of divorce. Surah Al-Talaq, that is chapter 65, and there are verses available. But under what compulsion? This is the last resource in order to nullify and to break up the marital contracts. We are told to understand each other's values, to respect each other's, either a male and a female. So the Quran comes into rescue in Surah Al-Baqarah chapter 2 verse 187, that hunna libasul lakum antum libasul lahunna, that the men and the women, they are the garments and the protectors that to conceal their beauty to each other. They hide their secrets. We have problems. Everyone has problems. But it is not like that. You know, the people will tell that, look, some part of the Muslims world, they force the women to marry. That is a valid opinion by them. But most of these marriages are continuing. Even we know some of them are abusive relations, the women are passing. But that is not the legislation of Islam to force someone to choose his partner or her partners. Islam has a guideline. So this problem can be solved if people think nowadays that yes, we need somehow or the others an understanding, a better understanding, to respect each other, to sacrifice. One of the aspects of Islam is to teach sacrifices. Not that we sacrifice a very big margin, that if we see our spouses are doing open lewdness or open sexual relations with another person, then we have a right to take initiatives in order to resolve the problem. But the world, what they are promoting, is in no way is resolving any of these problems that are faced by the world. Because the numbers are increasing. Love and affections, it is a human nature. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created us in the way. So Surah Al-Rum chapter 30 verse 21, Allah says, the male and female are similar in nature. In love and compassionate, they are attached to each other. But in the same time, Quran gives the direction that outside wedlock, you are not allowed to even come closer to that sections of open lewdness. So in Surah Al-Isra, chapter 17, verse 32, Allah says, do not come closer to adultery, because that is an evil and shameful deed. Now, we have to understand us, especially nowadays, because the initial messages of the Quran and the Islam is for the Muslims. When we understand and we present a better society, our neighbors and the people who want to criticize us, they will take lessons and they will take initiatives. One of the other problems, along with the social problem we find in the world today, along with these two kinds of problems of alcoholism, problems of divorce, now coming the problem of abortion, killing of infants. Now, why this is a social problem? Because when we count the number, how many abortions taking place in the world today, that signifies 46 million abortions are taking place in the world today. 26 million are legal and about 20 million are illegal. Now, how to legalize and illegalize, that's a separate issue, but that is the figure given by the United Nations and the authority in the world today. 35%. Now, this is because related to women. The women have to understand. The women between the age of 15 to 44, 35% only women are being faced this kind of abortions. Now, what is the reasons behind that? They have given various causes, and the reasons that unexpected pregnancy outside wedlock, teenage pregnancy is one of the major reasons. You become pregnant before the age. Now, in the Eastern Europe, the rates of abortion in the high in the world, 86 per 1,000 people. And in the Western Europe, so-called Western countries, the proportion is the minor in the world, about 13 to 1,000 people. So in Sweden, they give a report in the statistics of 2009 and 2008. It declines in compared to 2008. There are about 38,053 abortions, because we know Sweden has set up abortion register the abortions. That one of the reasons to put abortion register is to identify that how many gender-based abortion is taking place. You know, in China, because of the policy of one child, they are now making abortion 9 million infants every year. 9 million abortion in only one country. That is China. Because the government set up a legislation that it should be one child. And now, most of the parents, they don't want a female child. So if there is a female, because the advancement of technology will help us to know before, and then if they found that is a female, they abort it. So these numbers is compounded. Even in the United States of America, 1.37 million a year. So now we have to see, in UK and South Wales, it's 185,000 abortions took place last year. Now, is this a problem? Okay, by the experts, by the academics, by the people who are concerned in the authority, they are raising these issues about this problem. So now what is the solutions? Gender-based abortion is the number one. And now the unwanted pregnancy is also another cause of this. The teenage pregnancy is another reason for this kind of abortions that is took place. And people are legalizing. You know, legalizing means you inform the authority, and before 18 weeks if the age of the infant is 18 weeks, you can make the abortion. But after 18 weeks, you have to ask a pediatrician or a doctor or a physician in order to make it legal. But about 20 million of abortion is taking place outside this because people don't want to take concern. Asia is mostly suffering because that is part of the world hugely densely populated countries. And one of the reasons in India, 60 million women are missing every year in Asia. And one of the big proportion is China and India. Because of the cultural problem. We don't want any women. Now, about 30 million women, more men than women in China. Men are not finding women to marry. So they are going abroad in order to find. And some countries where they have more women than men, they legalize prostitution. Because the women have to find a way to fulfill their needs. So now people are running business out of this. Medicine industry, the pharmaceutical industries, the people who do business in the different commodities and in the media business. These are increasing based on these proportions who are not legitimate in the society. 500,000 women are trafficked in the Western Europe every year for prostitutions. This book is published in 2007 by the Nordic Gender Institute, and one of their main concerns is that prostitution and child trafficking in the Nordic countries. And they gave a very fruitful figures, because the trafficking of human trafficking, which is violating any kind of international human rights law, and also prostitution, which is taking away. Now, there are 80,000 prostitutes in Netherlands. There are 6,000 in Sweden. Now people are thinking to legalize it. Now this abortion also takes place due to the reason of incest. The incest is one of the relations of the closer relatives inside the home. The father and the daughter, the mother and the son, the brothers and the sisters. You will be amazed to know that Switzerland, they propose in their parliaments that the incest should be legalized and it should not be prohibited. So now they are coming. We know the homosexuality, how it is increasing in the society and being legalized by many countries. And they found Islam making a very rude way of life and giving something. But they're not raising these issues of social problem. HIV is one of the problems along with this. With all these kind of problems are coming HIV. Now, how many people are suffering in the world? Because this is an epidemic proportions. About 40 million people in the world are suffering of HIV. 2.5 million people are dying every year because of the epidemic disease. We know what is the cause. Because of immoral practices. Along with this, there are some other reasons, but in the US, their health ministry published a report last December. Almost they made a survey among the homosexuals, the gays and the men having sex with men. They found almost 1/5 of them is suffering of HIV. And in Sweden, some judges and police inspector and also some HIV-infected men and women, they commit sex. They call it unsafe sex, using without protection, sex without protection. So the promotion is going on there. The 14th of February is coming, the Valentine's Day. So now, one of the causes of this problem is immorality, we know. But the people are giving free condoms to the youths in order to promote this epidemic disease. Now, who is there to raise this voice that is this epidemic is decreasing or increasing? And in Sweden it's about 500 new HIV. It is ringing the bell by the authority that compared to the last year, this year, the past year 2010, there are 500 more HIV people have been infected. 20% it rises according to the statistics of the HIV. Now the government, what they're doing, they're promoting using condoms. Now we have judges, respected judges of the court, the authority police forces, and the other people who know the law, that if you are infected, at least use some protection. But they say they have been caught up and they have been arrested and been fined for a few thousands and for some years in the jail in order to have unsafe sex. Does this legislation is making any positive sign in the community? We don't have to answer. We have to ask them in order to find the answer. But when you ask SD, this is not the problem in the society. The problem are the Muslims, the immigrants. And we have to see in a very clear angle. Now, what is the Islamic solutions in order to resolve this kind of problems? So there is no room for illegal relations. There is no room for extra or premarital relations in Islam. Yes, we have to tell the people to make an awareness that you are suffering mostly and this disease is increasing. one of the major signs before the day of judgment given by the Prophet of Islam is also this, that the diseases of the animal will increase among the human. And now we find various diseases of the animal is coming through human, because we are now getting worse and worse in our thinking. Maybe in the form we are human, but in our thinking we are less than animals. There is no room for prostitution. There is no room for pornography industries. $42.5 billion project every year in the Western world. We're talking about women's rights, but $42.5 billion business they have opened in order to nurture the women and let them force by trafficking and by making them prostitutes and by making them a porn actress. So now we have to understand that the Quran, it gives a guidelines. Why I was saying that the most significant guidelines are the guidelines that is embodied in the Quran. And the most truthful guidelines are the guidelines of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Because it all gives us a direction how to find social peace along with justice. Because without justice, there is no peace in the society. We have to just by ourselves and we have to just within the system. Now, along with this problem, coming another social problem, that is suicide. Not the suicide we talk mostly in the media about Iraq, Afghanistan or Palestine. People forget 18.6 per 100,000 people are committing suicide in Sweden. What about the number in the United States? What about the number in the European region? But people trying to put finger on the others, look, they have problems in order to hide their 2,000 to 2,500 people have been committing suicide every year. What is the reason? Especially the youths. You know, one of the main reasons is the economic reason. Now the problem coming from social problem to economic problem. Because of the economic burden, you know, there are thousands of farmers nowadays in the Asia, in China, in India, they are committing suicide because of the economic burden. They took small amount of debt from the bank and the financial organization and they are unable to pay. And now some of us carrying the mobile even for 6,000 krona, and you will be amazed to know 1,500 krona, this is the amount, it is 15,000 equivalents to the currency of India. Now, because of this amount, 1,500 krona, some farmers, about 700 farmers are committing suicide every year. They produce rice, they produce crops. We, especially the Western world, most of the time they import most of the goods, especially from that region. But now, where is the justice in the society in order to give them an economic stability? But political concerns are not there. So we have about 160,000 suicides taking place in the European region. And you know, the reports also there, because of US soldiers are nowadays, their suicide rate is increasing because they have lost the amount of killing they have done in the region in the recent wars. Now 32 to 40 soldiers are dying, committing suicide every month. The high equipped people, the armed forces, because they see and they kill the innocents of different regions in the world. Now they have lost their life because they were forced to go to that sections of the world in order to nurture something that is against humanity. And now what is the Islamic solutions to this problem? We know suicide is prohibited in Islam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives the solutions in Surah An-Nisa, the chapter that deals with women. In 4th chapter, in verse 29, Allah says, kill not yourself and kill not the others. Now the hadith also comes in to rescue the life of innocence and the lives also the persons who lost his thinking. The hadith of Bukhari, volume 2, hadith 445 and 446, there was incidents that some people were committing suicides because, you know, we all have distresses in our life. We all have miseries. We all pass certain difficulties in different parts of our lives. But the Prophet ﷺ says, if you hurry to cause yourselves to die before the Creator destined you to death, then the Creator in the day of resurrection will throw you into the hell. He will not resurrect you and He will not award you for your hurriness to death. So now we have to understand that this is not the problem that we see in the world today, manipulated by most of the people, especially the politicians. So under calamity, under distresses, we are told to increase the concept of patience, the sabr we say in Islam, the patience. We should control our mind, we should control our focuses. We have distresses, but there is a light behind. There are reasons of environmental reasons people are committing suicide. They got distresses of cold. Some people, they don't find sun. But we have to see that, look, because we are not seeing sun for certain months of a year, why we should commit suicide? And this is the awareness that we should be resolving in the world. Along with the economic problem in the world, there is extreme poverty in the world today. 2.1 billion people, almost one-third, more than one-third of the population, are living under extreme poverty. This statistics is from United Nations. 2.1 billion people are living in extreme poverty. They don't have $1.27 to spend in a day. $1.27 is approximately 10 krona. So now we have to think, we here especially, first time I see in the Western world, when I am living here, people throw the valuable things if it's just old for a few months in order to get a new one. Because there is a great economical support by the government and the financial institutions. But are we sharing the resources that we have, the amount of wealth that we have? You know, Islam teaches us how to sacrifice for others. I mean, this is a great concern for individual to understand. Why Islam says that you should deserve the same things for you as you deserve for your brother. So the Prophet of Islam, he made in the Hadith of Bukhari, in the first volume, Hadith number 12, that none of the followers of mine is a true believer unless he deserves the same things as he deserves for the others. And we know the Hadith of Abu Dawud, that if a Muslim make his tummy full, he is full of food, and he is sleeping and his neighbor is hungry. Now we find 2.1 billion people are without food. They don't have food for a day, even for a meal. So now we have to think rationally. The dominance by the international policy, especially the American foreign policy. Or nowadays we find different policy that is eradicating this problem to identify. This is not the problem. Let them think we have our resources. Why not we pass a luxurious life that we have? But Islam comes us and give us a thinking that, look, they are human. We are one single brotherhood of humanity. We have to think rationally for the others. Today he is suffering, tomorrow I can be the sufferer. Now what I am contributing for him or for her or for that community. I have resources, I have technology, I have knowledge. Now I have a greater responsibility to share. Not for political reasons or for fame, gaining fame. No, we don't need that. We find various companies in the world earning billions of profits in a year. Namely, we can find various companies. But in a year, after the year, they give 1 million as a donations just to show up. We don't want that show up. We say give equality. You know, people are employing the people from low wages countries, 500 krona. You know, the garments worker, the garments manufacturing worker in our country, in Bangladesh, even in India, some part of the land, they get 80 krona to 320 krona per month as a salary, which is much more higher than the average clothes that we wear every day. You know, 320 krona per month. And now how much we are contributing? So H&M, you know, in our country, the people have a habit of stealing goods because they are not getting paid. That is not the excuse. What they did, they put a lock outside the door, so there was a fire, and 24 workers have been burned in the fire in the last month. You know, these reports come in every newspapers almost, and this is H&M. Now if H&M can give 1 million krona in a year as a donation, what does it cost us? They earn billions. We say give equality, equal wages, equal respect to the human, because they are human. They don't ask you 30,000. They ask you maybe 700 krona or 1,000 krona per month. But that is a huge for them. But you can spend here 1,000 krona for a t-shirt or for a garments that we wear every day. So we have to think rationally, my dear brothers and sisters. Islam has a concept of zakat and charity. There are numerous verses in the Quran. In Surah At-Tawbah chapter 9 verse 60, it defines that the recipient of zakat, the 8 categories of people. And the voluntary charity we are told to practice every day. And this is what we have to understand as a human being. Along with other problems that Islam comes to give a small directions. We can find various examples, but time will not permit us. I will try to end with a very short time, inshallah. The problems of the political problems in the world. You know, the problems of the own country is no longer there, because no longer America is concerned about their own homicides or own suicide or own rapes. Because rape is also, I exclude that chapter, as there's huge statistics I have to present. And now they have to go in order to invade lands or to support the invaders. You know, the political problems in the world today, what is going on, I will give a lecture inshallah next month, which I intend, about the possible solutions, possible peaceful solutions and Islamic solutions to resolve the conflict of Israel and Palestine. For the last 6 decades, the people are suffering. And now, where is the concern? People put economic pressure on Iran. People put economic pressure, political pressure on Afghanistan and the Muslim countries. That is not the case. Some Zion is taking over the land. They are killing and butchering people for decades. And now the issues remains there is the suicide bombing of that area. But that is not the issue. The politics, especially the politicians. You know, in Sweden, there are 30,000 rapes. How the politicians, they manipulate the records. The National Bureau of Crime Prevention, if you see this BBC report just coming before 2 days ago, there was a BBC reporter in the Hard Talk, she interviewed the spokesman of the Swedish Democrat. And he was giving a figure that out of 144 examples, 48% were immigrants. I'm talking about the rapes. But the spokesman of the Swedish National Crime Prevention, if you know the language of the academics and the language of the politician, they say, look, he has distorted the evidence. Distorted in the literal meanings means fabricated, showing the opposite picture of the evidences. There are 256 cases which the National Bureau of Crime Prevention, they show it to Swedish Democrat. But out of those 256, they only picked up 144 examples. And he says distorted means the picture is opposite. By meaning that the origin, those who are original Swedish, in the proportions, they do more crimes, in these violent crimes that is committed in the past year. It has been committed by them. But the politicians, you know, they try to add the fire on the fuel. No longer the Malmo shooter is becoming a terrorist, but he becomes a mentally ill person, while the bomber of Stockholm bombing is become, you know, Muslim terrorist. Why not he can be also a mentally ill person? I don't know whether he is ill or not, but why not he can be also described as a problem in the society, not the Islamic terrorism, Muslim terrorism, but a problem. He have a different way of understanding, like the way of understanding of Malmo shooter. Now a shooter, if he is mentally ill, he cannot use snipers and hide and only target the black or the foreign origin people. This is the task of the clever people. If you are clever, then you can identify, okay, he is my brother, he is Swiss, or he is a European, okay, he is a black. But now, you have to manipulate the evidences. Now, we have to think rationally in order to resolve this problem. Islam has a concept of justice. It gives and it teaches more the personal moral values to increase. We are told in the Quran, I was reciting the verse, that we're told to speak always the truth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives in the Quran the 2 verses. He says in the Surah Al-Isra chapter 17 verse 81 that وَقُلْ زَالَ حَقْ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلَ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. That the truth of Islam is come, and the falsehood, it should perish, because the falsehood is by its nature is bound to perish. There is no room for falsehood in Islam. Truth cannot be established based on falsehood. Because any false, today or tomorrow, it is bound to perish. So we are told to be just ourselves, to respect our own identity, the speech we give or the informations that we give. We should not fabricate the informations as we like. Let there be rational figures. Let there be a figures which is accepted by the majority. So now, this problem of political problem can only be solved if we just solve the politics. And the politicians have to be good. They have to be just in every sections. So Islam is a concept of justice. Allah says in Surah An-Nisa chapter 4 verse 135 that you do justice in every section of life, even the justice going against yourself, against your relatives, against a rich or against a poor. No matter anyone is there, but you should stand for justice, because Allah will protect the both. I can do injustice today, but tomorrow in the day of judgment, I have to account for that. Even in some part of this life, I have to account for that. Now, the Prophet Muhammad he gives another illustrations that to uphold the value of justice. He said that in the Hadith of Bukhari, in the volume 8, that the person, the ruler who is just, he will be shaded in the day of judgment by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And 7 categories of people, out of that first category is a just ruler. So that we encourage our politicians, especially the law-making authority, in order to uphold and establish justice. There are, my dear brothers and sisters, there are numerous problems of educational sector, the problem of justice we have been talking, the problems of economy. We know the problems in the world today, economic recessions. We find most of this problem is not due to economic recessions. Before that, we need a moral recessions. Because the people who run the economy, morally they collapse. The forms of capitalism is taking over all way of life. Handful of people is running the system. And they have everything. They have media, they have own politicians, they are manipulating the academic evidences, writing books and journals and evidences, and they are manipulating just to show to the world, to move in another direction so that they can get benefit by themselves. Now, we have a serious problem of environments. When millions of people have become flood refugees, there are problems and great concerns in the world due to global warming. We need a separate lectures of each and every topics of this, because this is not just a simple issues. We say, look, Islam has solutions, maybe the Muslims don't have. But if a person who claims to be Muslim, and if he or she just put a small amount of efforts in order to educate his or herself, and then try to find what is the Islamic precise solutions to all these problems, because all these things is related to humanity. And the most certainly, the missing problems in the world, because we are living now secular world, where is the spirituality? Without the submissiveness of individual, there is no peace in the society. Why I say submissiveness? Because if the government makes a law, if we are not submitting ourselves on the law, there will not be peace in the society. That is a very, very simple concept, a very simple definition. So the creator of the heaven and the earth, who runs this system of the universe precisely, he knows best things and the best legislations for humanity. Now, I was reading some papers by Mahatma Gandhi. You know, the Mahatma Gandhi is one of the political leaders in India when there was colonized by the British and the separations took place and the Indian kicked out the British. Gandhi, in his collective works of writing, he was writing various principles, and he has summarized his principles based on 7 principles, which he says that if we forget about these 7 principles, the humanity will suffer a lot, and the destroy of humanity is bound to come. And first of all, he gives the reasons that wealth without work. You know, one of the principles that demolish human value is the wealth without work. There are companies, there are financial institutions, they are earning millions and billions out of the hard work of the others. based on interest, they are earning money. People putting money in the bank and sitting in home, and some other people is working in the field, and they are now earning and giving money to these people, those who are passing leisure time. And this kind of money without work is demolishing human principle. Islam comes 1400 years before to legislate these rights. The Prophet of Islam, he says, give the laborer his wages or her wages before the sweat become dry. It is better that you ask something than you give. So Islam have a way to work hard by yourself in order to earn money. And now the pleasure without conscience, Gandhi says that these principles, in Sweden especially, I'm giving the statistic, a figure of Sweden. Swedbank was giving some websites to the kids in the school, cheater.com, dating.com. You know what going on is in this website. People are inviting other people to commit either the fornications or adultery. And this is one of the sections of pornography. And they said, look, kids likes it. And the education ministry have to make some legislations against them to restrict it. In the Stockholm library, now this is a great concern of child pornography. People demand pleasure out of any conscience. The couples, the married couples and the young couples are sitting and inviting this cheating.com other couples to commit adultery with their spouses. So now we have lost our pleasures. So the pleasure should be based on conscience. Some people are laughing because some people are dying in other part of the world. They are laughing because they want benefits, they want pleasure. Now knowledge without character. Gandhi says, if there is a knowledge without character, that principle will also demolish the humanity. Now we have educating people from Oxford, from Harvard, running all these concepts that we took off, but they never highlight this. The education is there, but the character is not there. The foundation of Islam is based on character. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that I have come to perfect the character. And now we have to understand that these values are there in Islam. It preserves the value. The philosopher, the ideological people in the society, the influential people in the society who think they are now summarizing their values also based on the principle of Islam. Now commerce without morality, the business without morality. There are commerce, there are business industries in the world. I told you, how can it be a business ethics that you do pornographic business, $42.5 billion business? How you can sell your mother and sister and daughter? This business has no ethics and no moral, yet this is expanding. And there are other business also. You see the advertisement, people selling goods by selling human. So now we can give various examples of each of every sections. Gandhi says science without humanity. People are doing research. 200 light miles away there is a planet. We will find diamonds over there and we will find huge amount of carbon over there. What we do? People are dying in here, 2.1 billion people who don't have food. But they are telling we should go 200 years after, 200 light years after in order to find that planet, because there we find some diamonds. What we do with the diamond today? Because the humanity should be great concern. The same people, the same group of people, the other section is telling, look, we should concern about that. But the other people investing millions and billions of dollars in order to make an experiment on something, maybe it will benefit somehow, but the importance is not there. And religions without sacrifices. One of the principles of the Gandhis, he says that we have religion in the world today, nobody sacrifices. But Islam comes you to sacrifices on every section. And politics without principle. We describe very few. That how the politicians, because of without principles, now they are nurturing. They are eating up everything, every moral, social values from the society. Now Islam needs no reform, my dear brothers and sisters. It's a perfect religion.
based on perfect guidelines. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He prescribes in the Quran that this is a book for those who think. Now, are we thinking on what is legislation given by the Creator? The rational answer would be no. There are problems in the Muslim society, problem in the non-Muslim society. But we are brotherhood of humanity. We are told to raise these issues along with the solutions so that the mankind can find a guidelines. That is the duty of every Muslim. To invite people to ma'ruf, that is the lawful things, and to forbid them to access munkar, and that is the forbidden things. So, in the conclusion of my talk, my dear brothers and sisters, we all demand peace, and justice is a prerequisite of peace. We need good leaders. Where we find examples? The best example for humanity is the last and final messenger, Prophet Muhammad. Why? We can claim that. Not only we claim that, the peoples of other faith, they also claim that. You know, the historian, they also claim that. One of the historians of the France, Lamartine, in 1854, he was addressing his Anglican audiences, British audiences, the American audiences. He wrote a book about the history de la Turkey, the history of Turkey, the fall and the rise of the Turkish Empire. And in his book, Lamartine, he gives an attributes in order to find the great leaders of history. And he gives these attributes to our Prophet Muhammad. He said, philosopher, orator, apostle, legislator, warrior, conqueror of ideas, the restorer of a rational belief of a cult without images, the founder of 20 terrestrial empire and of one spiritual empire, that is Muhammad. I mean, he gives 20 attributes that let it be a philosopher or a warrior or any person that you may think of. Bring all these people. He was inviting at the end of his book, the last section of his book, that in regards to all standard, any human greatness can be measured. We may well ask, is there any man greater than he? And he made the answer in the question mark, that no man is greater than he. Another reverend of the Anglican Church, Reverend Bosworth Smith, he was also writing a book, The Messenger, Muhammad and Mohammedanism. He wrote a book about this subject, it's 1946. And also in his book, he gives some of these attributes. People talks about Pope, people talks about leader like Caesar. So he answered that Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he was a Caesar and a Pope in one man. He was a Pope without the legends of the Pope. He was a Caesar without the legends of the Caesar. Without bodyguards, without a fixed revenue, without police forces, and without any showings. If any man had the right to claim that he ruled by the right divine, it was Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, according to the claim of Reverend Bosworth Smith. And he was going further, that he had all the power without their support, but he cared not for the dressings of power. The simplicity of this man made him so superior among his followers. So now we have our Prophet among us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He prescribed in the Quran, in Surah Al-Ahzab chapter 33 verse 21, that لَقَدْ قَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Verily you find in the Messenger of Allah a best example among Prophets to follow, those who have the hope in the hereafter, to meet His Lord. They should follow Him. So now Islam's prescribed in its principles, the 5 basic principles we know, the faith we want, then the salah, the righteous deeds we want every 5 times a day, reminding every time our duties and responsibilities to the Creator and to the fellow human being, the sadaqah, the charity, to teach us how to sacrifice and contribute to humanity, in the Hajj and pilgrimage, enforcing us the unity of the belief. If you do not go there, you will not find that atmosphere to understand what is the unity of belief. People from all around the world, people from all races, under one umbrella, and with the garbs of one single cloth. No differentiate between these. The problem of racism in the world today is a single example to show. The problem of zakat, the charity, the fasting, how it gives an individual the feelings to feel about others. So with all these aspects, my dear brothers and sisters, Islam is the solutions for the problems of humanity. let it be a modern problem, let it be the problem to come in future, it stands always for its solutions, to lead mankind to the destiny to acquire peace by submitting their will to the will of the Creator. So at the end of my talk, I would like to end by the quotation of the Quran, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages and enforces the Muslims and being given an obligations. He says, "Udu ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal ma'wizati wal hasanati wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan." That the Muslims are obliged to invite other people to the way of Islam with wisdom, with beautiful preaching, and to reason with them and argue with them in the way that is best and most gracious. So we also encourage our Muslims community to enlighten their knowledge and to understand this value, why Islam gives the directions as a form of solutions, as a form of guidelines for humanity to resolve this problem and find a better way of life. And we are told to propose it to the others so that we can live in peace and harmony in the society. Dear brothers and sisters, we offer the salah and then we take some refreshments and then we will proceed to questions and answer session, inshallah.